debating with historical figures, rescuing a village from a never-ending blizzard, and even blasting rockets into space in the hopes they make their destination. All of these have one thing in common: game-based learning. Welcome to Teaching Gamers tutorial on game-based learning. Welcome, you inspired gamers and learners, to Teaching Gamers, where we talk about the games that taught us and how we can teach with games. My name's Mallory Kesson. I'm a gamer, teacher, and ed tech coach with a passion for bringing games and learning together. Today's tutorial explains game-based learning, what it is, why we use it, and how to bring it to our classrooms. If you enjoy what we're doing here, feel free to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell to receive notifications for when we post new content. Let's get started. Let's start at the basics. What is game-based learning? Very simply, game-based learning is just learning with games. Whether video games, tabletop games, playground games, or the first time someone asks you if you want to play 52 pickup, we constantly learn from games. This learning can be done both from playing games and even creating them. The other term used often with games in education is gamification. While the terms seem similar, there are some pretty important differences between them. Keep an eye out for our tutorial video on gamification for more information diving into it and resources for getting started. For now, the key thing to know is that gamification focuses on taking game principles to adjust behaviors or classroom setup and management, while game-based learning focuses more on the learning itself and how we adjust our sources for teaching our content. There are some pretty great benefits that can come with game-based learning. Games make content interactive for students, which gives them a sense of ownership in their own learning. Suddenly, a city's success or failures rely on their choices. The ability for a young animal to be able to make its way to its new home safely depends on what the player does. If the player makes choices that end in bad results, that's part of the student's ownership. People have a drive and a need to succeed, and that's something that we get to see and harness when we use the power of games. Game-based learning also minimizes fear of failure, which is something that as teachers, we wish we could harness every single day. In games, you're expected to fail and try again and find success the more you play. That's actually even a common way that people learn how to play fighting games. Fail, you lose a match, you get better, you try again. With game-based learning, students have the ability to let go of some of that fear. Trying and failing is often rewarded in games. Gamers as a community are also used to people starting to play and trying to help each other out. So for students who maybe aren't so used to playing games, it can also be a safe spot to start in. Not to mention, by playing games or simulations, students have the ability to take on so many different roles and personas that they otherwise wouldn't have a chance to, or otherwise might not be safe for them to try. So not only does it minimize fear of failure, but it gives them an opportunity to get to explore some of these areas and some of these topics without having to worry about any real-world consequences. Games can also encourage interpersonal skills in communicating and collaborating with other players, analytic skills as they assess situations and decide what to do from there, and even encourages empathy for both their fellow players and for others through stories in games. So there are a ton of benefits to game-based learning, and in terms of some of the challenges that come with it, we'll be sure to cover that in a later video where we can discuss not only the challenges, but how we solve them. So how could you use game-based learning in your classroom? We're gonna do my favorite thing, which is to do a quick lightning round with all of our contents and general grade levels to showcase how you could use games as a learning resource in each class. It's one of my favorite things to get to do. And if I go through all of these and you feel like you don't see something that fits for you, leave a comment below. I challenge you. I can find something that works. English language arts. Life is Strange. The game Life is Strange has a number of beautiful things that you could use in your class. Not only do they have a number of references to Catcher in the Rye, such as a poster inspired by the book cover in the main character's room, who, by the way, is Max Caulfield. All the references, love it. But it's also a game that really inspires quite a bit of empathy for others and having to make decisions and be able to explain why you made those decisions. An English class could have a field day with this for not only seeing how past media informs present media, but also using it as a way that games are a modern storytelling tool. Science classes. Kerbal Space Program. Kerbal Space Program is a game all about trying to build a rocket that can launch to outer space and to other planets. And in doing so, players are engineers who are trying to put together these rockets. If a rocket doesn't fit together quite right, you will find out at launch when it doesn't succeed. It encourages students to learn more about what makes a successful rocket and could be fantastic for students getting to explore physics, outer space, and how we can make some of that mechanical engineering work. Math classes. The Game Spent is a wonderful way to combine the math side with personal finances, being able to add, subtract, divide, multiply, plan things out ahead of time, keep to a budget, with social issues. Spent is all about putting players in the role of someone who is the head of a household for a low socioeconomic family, and how they manage to make their budget work for a month. Regardless of how well students think that they can budget or they can make things work, it's a pretty beautiful way to both take math and social issues and tie in some empathy to it as well. Social studies classes. Mission US covers a number of eras throughout US history. Students are given the role of playing a character who's around middle school age and are given the task of playing through different conflicts and concerns that really are at the heart of American history. Not only does Mission US have vocabulary that is specific to each chapter that students can learn from, but they have a number of other learning moments as well, and opportunities to get to even debate with historical figures. Social studies classes could easily use Mission US as a way to team up with their language arts counterparts. Physical education. You didn't think I was forgetting about you, did ya? In physical education classes, you could easily use games like Dance Dance Revolution to get students up and moving in a way that maybe tricks them a little bit into their exercise. Or you could even use something like Zombies Run, which is all about using the runs that you do and earning points for it, leveling up, and so on. Not only does it have some of that gamification side that we'll talk about in our other video, but it also has its own story that comes along with it and its own world that you get pulled into. Modern world languages. Influent. Influent is a game where you take on the role of a man who came up with a tool that was meant to translate everything just by pointing it at something, and then he promptly had it stolen from him. And so he has to learn hundreds of words and practice them and get better with them so he can ultimately reclaim his own technology. Influent is a great game for students to play, and it comes with a number of different languages. Whether you're looking for something to supplement what you're already doing in class, or if you have a student who is determined to take on the challenge of learning Japanese, but you don't have a Japanese class at your school, it could be a really great way to encourage language learning and a love for language among students. The fine arts, Greece. I am a huge fan of Greece, as we've talked about in our reviews earlier and as I have tattooed on my arm. The fine arts could do a beautiful job using Greece in class because not only does it have a beautiful and haunting soundtrack that seems to perfectly mirror the world around it and really set the mood, but it was also partly inspired by an artist's design. Students could get to explore watercolor and surrealism and maybe even take that extra step to design their own level of the game. What would they have that next step look like? And for my early education folks, a bird story. A bird story is all about a young boy who discovers a hurt bird and takes it home. Freebird Games wanted to find out what it would be like to design a game where you don't need to have any language in particular at all. No matter what the reading level of your students, it won't matter for a bird story. And it can still be a beautiful way for students to get to experience character, conflict, plot, and maybe even practice writing their own version of what comes next. All right, so I hit on all of our different subject areas, some early education, and I'm gonna hit actually a bonus level. Not only can you use games as a way for students to consume content, for game-based learning, but you can also use games in a number of ways to encourage content creation for students and allow them to take on that role of being designers and developers. So we're going to do a bonus lightning round level, and we are going to run through a few of those options. Minecraft EDU has taken off fantastically in past years, with students and teachers alike creating whole museums or worlds, or even recreating London from Shakespeare's day. You could use Minecraft EDU with students for them to create whole worlds based on different prompts. You could also use Epic's Fortnite Creative for students to do something similar and in a world that they have a high interest in. You could also use Sims as a way for students to practice everything from architecture to life skills, and even if it's not the most realistic, it's something that can get students thinking about what they might like to be in the future and what they might like to do. Portal 2 is a great one for content creation for science students, as Portal 2 has its own level creator for schools where you can actually create different levels that are based on our physics and based on using the physics found in Portal 2 as well. Any of the Tycoon games would be a great pick for students getting to learn on the math side of things with business or with social studies and getting to see what it really takes to be an entrepreneur. On the English language arts side, students can use Pop Cannibal's Elegy for a Dead World, which combines science fiction with romantic poetry in a way that I just cannot believe someone came up with, and it's brilliant. Not only could students get to explore the romantic poets, but they have a whole world at their disposal for exploring and getting to write their own stories. This is just the beginning of how games could be used in class, and there are so many excellent options. Like I said before, my favorite challenge to throw down is that I truly believe there is a game that fits for everyone and for every class. Want to test that theory? Leave a comment below about your class or your situation, and I'll see if I can help. So with all of these examples, you may be wondering how the teacher fits into game-based learning. One of the best ways to think about this is to think about the TPACK model of instruction. When we teach, we have content knowledge and pedagogical knowledge. You as the teacher know the content and pedagogical knowledge because it's your jam. It's your craft. You practice it every day. The T part of TPACK is all about technology. Tech can be a way to enhance our work, not replace it, and that should be the goal. So think of game-based learning as a way to enhance what you do, as yet another way for students to have another opportunity to access that content knowledge. And using your pedagogical knowledge, you can make the most of it. It's another opportunity to use technology the way we want to, a way to use play the way we want to. The teacher's role in game-based learning is to guide your students and connect the game to your content knowledge and learning objectives. Playing games in class just for the sake of it isn't the goal. Channeling fun challenges and opportunities to help students learn better is the goal. Now that we've run through our quick explanation of game-based learning and all of our ideas to get going, it's your turn to take that controller and run with it. If you're looking for your next step to take, pick one of the games described or one of the resources mentioned earlier. Start with one to dive into more, and look for how it could work best with your class. Remember, start with your goal in mind and then pick the game that works best for you. If you're looking for great resources, keep an eye out for our upcoming video on teaching gamers top picks for game-based learning resources. If you're worried about pushback or still have questions, ask your question in the comments below and I'll try to help out. You can also keep an eye out for our upcoming video on how to handle common challenges in game-based learning. Overall though, if you want to take a step starting today, start small with a single unit, a project, a lesson, a single game. And if you run into road bumps, that's okay. You can figure out what to change from there. Most of all though, have fun with it as you're planning and running through your game with your students. Learning is a lifelong adventure and we should all have some fun on the way. Thanks for watching the Teaching Gamers tutorial on game-based learning. If you want to learn more about the resources discussed, check out our links in the description below. If you have questions, comments, ideas, and more, feel free to leave a comment. And of course, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you can see more of Teaching Gamers. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.